security chief tries to ease concerns about Beijing's help over Occupy Central. All 15 crew members of sunken South Korean ferry now in custody, and G7 announces more sanctions on Russia over Ukraine.
Good evening. Secretary for Security Lai Tong-kwok has sought to ease concerns about Beijing's intervention over the Occupy Central movement. But Lai refused to say if the government has any established mechanism to determine how and when it would ask for help. Beijing officials have been showing great concern about the proposed Occupy Central campaign. Earlier this week, the director of the Hong Kong and Macau Affairs Office, Wang Guangya, told a delegation of local media executives that the SAR government could seek Beijing's help if the civil disobedience movement gets out of control. According to the Basic Law, Hong Kong may seek the assistance of the People's Liberation Army when necessary. In an interview with TVB News, Secretary for Security Lai Tong-kwok refused to say how or under what circumstances the SAR government would make that request.
Something that is in the Basic Law does not necessarily mean that we have to invoke it. The Basic Law also requires us to maintain the law and order of Hong Kong. This is our duty. And we have a duty to do a good job for that. And I'm confident that we can do that.
But does this mean that the government has no set guidelines or no mechanism discussed?
Well, what we are now doing is that we monitor closely the development. And we have thorough plans of how to handle any likely situation that may arise by our police officers.
One of the organizers of Occupy Central, Chan Kim-man, said Beijing was just trying to create fear.
It is completely unnecessary because Occupy Central had already declared that we are going to be non-violence. And Hong Kong people have a very long history of launching peaceful demonstration. We never need the help from the PLA.
Chan cited the 2005 World Trade Organization protests as an example. He said Hong Kong authorities were able to handle the situation well, even at the height of the demonstrations, including those staged by South Korean farmers. There's just 1 week to go in the first stage of the political reform consultation. Secretary for Constitutional and Mainland Affairs Raymond Tam says the government has received tens of thousands of suggestions on the city's democratic development. Tam said the administration has yet to come up with a proposal for the Legislative Council election in 2016 and the Chief Executive election in 2017. He reiterated Beijing's two bottom lines for the SAR's constitutional reform. One is that the 2017 CE election by universal suffrage must be implemented according to the Basic Law and relevant decisions by the National People's Congress Standing Committee. And anyone who opposes the central government cannot become chief executive.
Relatives of the victims of the 2012 Lama Ferry disaster met this afternoon with Secretary for Transport and Housing Anthony Cheung. They insist the full internal investigation report should be released, something the government has rejected. Ronnie Samtani has more.
Officials are standing by their reasons not to release the full report publicly. Only a summary of the report was released on Thursday, revealing that 17 former and serving Marine Department officers are suspected of misconduct.
The victims' families feel, the majority of them, still we demand for full disclosure. They want the truth. They want the whole truth. They want, as much as possible, what the authority, under various restrictions, can disclose to them.
To and the families are calling on legislators to support invoking special LegCo powers to investigate the case. They are also requesting a meeting with the chief executive.
Some families indeed have suggested whether it would be possible for them to look at the report on condition of signing some sort of declaration on confidentiality or even for such declaration to carry criminal liability. As Secretary for Transport and Housing, I'm not in a position to provide such legal response. But I said I would bring their suggestions to the Department of Justice.
The full report has been handed over to the police to assist with the criminal investigation. Meanwhile, findings of the internal investigation will be discussed at the Legislative Council's Panel on Economic Development meeting on Monday. Secretary for Justice Rimsky-Yoon says the Director of Public Prosecutions will attend the LegCo meeting to explain the legal basis for only disclosing a summary of the report. Yoon also expressed reservations about the possible use of special LegCo powers to look into the incident. And as to whether officers found guilty will be punished, Yoon says the Department of Justice will advise the Civil Service Bureau on taking follow-up actions. Ronnie Samtani, TVB News.
And overseas now, all 15 crew members of the ferry that sank in South Korea have now been arrested for alleged criminal negligence. It's a tragedy that U.S. President Barack Obama expressed sorrow for during his visit to the country. Sonia Artero reports.
10 days after the sinking of the Seawall ferry, more than 180 bodies have been recovered, but more than 100 people are still missing. As divers continue plucking bodies out of the vessel, they came upon a horrible sight. The drowned bodies of 48 children in a single room meant to accommodate 38. Each of the dead had a life jacket on. More fuel for the fire, driving investigators on a mission to seek justice for families of the dead. What's more, the ship sank with several life rafts unused, even though it had more than enough for everyone. On suspicion the life rafts were faulty, investigators seized the Seawall's sister ship and discovered its life rafts and escape chutes were not working properly. Knowing only government inspectors can render ships safe, prosecutors made a number of raids on offices on suspicion officials had been bribed. President Obama expressed America's condolences by presenting his South Korean counterpart, Park Geun-hye, with the same American flag that was lowered over the White House the day the ship sank. He also visited American troops serving in the South to personally thank them for searching for survivors.
You provided quick support in response to last week's terrible ferry tragedy, because we understood when our friends are in trouble, America helps. And our hearts are broken for our Korean friends.
While uttering disparities between the two Koreas, Obama said the North remains a huge threat to Asia, but that the U.S. has Seoul's back.
Between a democracy that is growing and a pariah state that would rather starve its people than feed their hopes and dreams. That's not the result of a war, that's the result of the path that North Korea has taken.
Following his remarks, Obama left for Malaysia. This is the third stop of his four-country Asia tour. He'll meet with Prime Minister Najib Razak during his two-day state visit. Obama is the first American leader to visit Malaysia in nearly 50 years. Sonia Artero, TVB News.
Leaders from the Group of Seven industrialized nations have agreed to step up pressure on Russia with a new round of economic sanctions over the crisis in Ukraine. The announcement comes as pro-Russian separatists continue to hold a group of international observers captive. James Aiken reports.
The Ukrainian Foreign Ministry says it lost contact with members of the military verification mission yesterday. The 13 members of the Organization for Security and Cooperation in Europe had been dispatched to the rest of Donetsk region. The main separatist leader in Slavyansk says a military spy from Kiev was discovered among the group. Doesn't look good, he says.
Just a couple of items for all of you.
Washington says the incident appears to be part of a disturbing trend.
And over the past week, we've unfortunately seen an increase in a rapid escalation in hostage takings by pro-Russian separatists. We condemn these repressive and cowardly tactics, and call for the release of all hostages.
Russia, which is also a member of the OSCE, says it's taking all possible steps to free the observers. Meanwhile, a new round of targeted sanctions could come as early as Monday. The new sanctions are intended to punish Russia for failing to comply with an international deal to help defuse the crisis. The Geneva Agreement requires that illegal armed groups lay down their weapons and leave illegally occupied buildings. Moscow blames Kiev for not implementing the agreement and says it's eager to assist in de-escalating the crisis. The sanctions will likely target wealthy individuals or companies with influence in specific sectors of the Russian economy, such as energy and banking. Kiev is demanding that Moscow withdraw its troops from the border, which are estimated to number about 40,000.
Our motherland.
Anxious Ukrainian officials accuse Moscow of plotting an imminent invasion.
As things stand right now, do you fear that the Russians are on the verge of an invasion?
Yes. We have the information that we are endangered. That's why we call upon Russian authorities to explain for what reasons they keep so many troops along our border.
James Aiken, TVB News.
33 people have been killed and dozens injured in 3 explosions that tore through a campaign rally for a militant Shiite group in the Iraqi capital. The blasts at the Baghdad stadium come ahead of next week's parliamentary election. An al-Qaeda breakaway group is claiming responsibility for the bombings, which it says are revenge for the killing of Sunnis and their forced removal from their homes by Shiite militias. The violence is a stark reminder of the sectarian violence that still plagues Iraq more than 2 years after U.S. troops ended an 8-year presence.
And still ahead in the news tonight. June 4th Museum opens to the public. Anti-nuclear protesters out in force in Taiwan. And is Ryan Giggs the right man to revive Man U?
I don't think she's breathing. You think she OD'd? I don't think that's going to be necessary.
A patient's girlfriend turns out to be a plastic doll.
I come home every night and I know she'll be there waiting.
So is your toaster.
You know what's really crazy? Living with a human being.
Monday, House at 10:40 on Pearl. Eve falls for a guy.
I need you to help me dye my hair.
Oh, is this to impress that hot guy who doesn't know how rain works?
No. This is who I am. Hey.
Cool hair.
I'm Eve's Aunt Lee.
Is this the one who sold your baby clothes to buy drugs?
Sunday, The Michael J. Fox Show at 8 on Pearl. The outstanding achievements and contributions of distinguished marketers deserves to be recognized. Since 2005, HKMA TVB Awards for Marketing Excellence has been presenting individual awards to honor distinguished marketers and bestow prestige and recognition upon them. The time has come for you to acknowledge the marketing elite in your company.
The HKMA TVB Awards
for Marketing Excellence
is open for entry now. Give us your support.
HKMA TVB Awards for Marketing Excellence 2014 is open for nomination now.
My partner is Becky, and I'm not thrilled at all.
When teammates don't get along.
I think we are creating a big pile of
Becky's sabotaging the project.
It's just not looking good.
Sunday, the all-new Face Off at 8:30 on Pearl.
Welcome back. The June 4th Memorial Museum in Chimsachoi today opened its doors to the public, and our Vicky Kung takes a look.
At the opening ceremony today, museum organizers tore apart a People's Daily article that supported the 1989 crackdown in Tiananmen Square. 25 years on, and the Hong Kong Alliance in support of patriotic democratic movements of China is now hosting the world's first June 4th Memorial Museum.
I think the significance of this museum is that, we preserve the truth as a struggle against suppression of memory inside China. And we hope that the new generation will come, mainland visitor will come, so that the truth can be spread around Hong Kong and China.
This